Basketball Manitoba podcast, we have Rashawn Browne. He played his college basketball at New Mexico State University and then transferred to California University of Pennsylvania for one season before coming back to Canada, where he played his final 3 years with the University of Manitoba Bisons. During his final 3 seasons with Manitoba, he led them to the most wins in school history while playing in the Canada West Conference. There, he was second-team All-Canadian. He was Canada West's first and third-team All-Star. He was University of Manitoba Male Athlete of the Year, and he was a men's basketball team MVP. After ending his university career, he was selected 8th overall in the 2020 CEBL draft by the Saskatchewan Rattlers. As a rookie, playing the CEBL Summer Series, he averaged 8.5 points, 3.5 assists, and 3.2 rebounds, and was the runner-up for USPORTS Player of the Year. Currently, Rashawn is an assistant coach with the University of Manitoba Bisons and is a board member of the newly founded Winnipeg Sea Bears of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. Rashawn, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Darcy, how's it going?
It's going, man. It's going. So I jumped online and I saw you wearing the Sea Bears shirt. So yes, you're not a Winnipeg native, but I think based off you wearing the shirt, your time at Manitoba, your personal life, I think you're a Winnipegger now.
Winnipeg is home. I work here. I bought a home with my fiance here. This is home base now.
This is it, man. So you got the Sea Bears shirt on. Talk a little bit about, man, you played in the CEBL as a player. Now you're obviously advising and in some capacity on their board. And you're part of the community. This is a pretty big thing to have this team here. And the CEBL, you know this, and I know this. It's a league doing things the right way. So tell me a little bit about that, like how you feel having a professional team here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think from the main thing I grew up in Toronto, right? So having the Raptors, right? I was able to have something to strive for as a kid, right? I was able to see what sports could do for people. And, basketball is not a sport that necessarily costs the most money to get involved in. So I think the Sea Bears will provide inspiration for, the demographic of people in Winnipeg that don't necessarily have the means to be playing a hockey or a football, right? And just kind of give that kid some hope that, hey, maybe I can do something with this sport that, leads to an education, leads to a job or whatever it could do.
Absolutely. And as the league grows, the thing I love about the CEBL is, and I was talking to Chad, and we were having this conversation. This is before the CEBL news with the Sea Bears, but we both knew about it at the time, so we were talking offline when I interviewed him. But the cool thing about it is that they offer that spot for USPORTS players, and I think that's like genius. Like that's unbelievable. Like it might be one of the few leagues, I mean, at least in North America, that has that type of opportunity.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think it's great. I think there's a lot of talent in the USPORTS level. I mean, obviously it's not all equal. I'd say there's, the guys that bounce back, didn't work out in the US, or, guys that just chose to stay home. And I feel like the idea for teams overseas is that, there's nobody in Canada. Like if we want a player, it's got to be coming from the Division 1, maybe the Division 2 level. Right. Well, I just think this is kind of a platform for guys like myself who we're probably good enough to play overseas to get that kind of exposure so that, we could catapult ourselves into a better basketball career.
Absolutely. No, that's the big thing about it. Like, and Canada, I mean, there's tons of talent here, and, people, they're still going to go play overseas, but that's another thing that they did is they made it a spring, like summer league, right? So it's like, hey, you come out here after playing, you can come back home, you can play in your home city. These are super unique opportunities. And again, like this league is no joke. Like I've been to games at different venues. The talent level is awesome. Again, this, you've played in it, and it just continues to grow. So again, like the fact that Winnipeg is on the map now as part of the league, I think is massive. And I know that the community is going to support the team, like without question. Like the community loves basketball.
For sure. And just to give like the listeners and the watchers at home an idea of what's kind of going on in the CEBL, you got to kind of understand the nature of professional basketball. It is, if we take out the NBA, right? Everywhere overseas, every team's going to have a restriction to how many imports they can have. Yes. Imports, people who aren't born in that country, right? So my point being, everybody in the CEBL, or most people, play overseas, which would mean that they're a top 3 to 4 maybe player on their overseas team, right? Then you take those players, so the best of their teams, you bring them back and you put them all together. So it's essentially like a summer of all-star basketball where you have coaches and actual sets. It's not all-star weekend where it's just, hey, go hoop. It's, hey, we're going to actually have practice. We're going to get you guys together. It's development, it's training. I think it's a great product.
Yeah. Yeah. No, super exciting. And the last thing I'll say about this, we're getting to your story, is the Elam ending. Tell us a little bit about that, man, because I know you've had some experiences with it.
Yeah, so that one threw me off. So for again, Elam ending is a little different than the traditional ending. So I'm sure everybody's watched a basketball game before. Clock runs down, game's over. Well, with Elam ending, I forget the exact number that you had, but so what happens is, say there's 4 minutes left in the game, right? Time stops, right? Time no longer matters. Whatever the score is at whenever that time hits, 4 minutes left in the game, you add a certain amount of points to the leading team score, and then it's just a race to see who gets there first. So technically you could be down 30, right? And if you can get to that target number before they can, you win, right? So it kind of takes out the, when fans leave at the end of the game because it's not that anymore, it's a blowout. That doesn't exist, right? So what we've essentially done, they've got the best of the best Canadians coming back home and playing together, right? With coaching, with practices, not just an all-star game. And on top of that, the games are never over, simply for the fact that it's not necessarily a clock thing. It's a, can we get to that score before they can, right?
Yeah. 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 No, it's that like, I think, wasn't it in this year's final? I want to say, like, one of the teams came back like crazy, something that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I said, and I think that's why people are going to be like, wow, this is insane. Like I know it's just going to be such a hit. And like I said, it's just a cool opportunity for, I think, local kids coming up to see that. And again, I know that in the past, I don't know if this is still the case, but when it does come to the U Sport athletes that they tend to have on the team, they tend to be like from the region, right? So like likely from Manitoba or Winnipeg or Brandon, local people, right? So it could be someone from that's playing out of Alberta or something, but they're going to be from the area typically. That's usually how it works, right?
Not necessarily. It worked like that for me. Sask was the closest team to Winnipeg, obviously. Yep. But there's a couple guys that would play in different spots. That draft pick is literally whoever they want to draft, right? USPORTS player. They could be graduating and still count. They could have 4 more years left, 3 more years left. It doesn't matter. As long as they're in USPORTS, they're eligible for that spot.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I guess it just depends on the franchise. Like, I mean, you probably do get that though, because if I'm think about it, if I'm, let's say you're, playing at Manitoba, you're having a great season, and you're going to be here. Well, let's just draft him because he's local, he's here. So It makes sense but again, it's going to be up to that franchise. So, all right, enough about the CBERs. Shout out to Mr. Asper. I know he's a listener of the podcast, so shout out and I thanked them personally. I said, you know what, the fact that you did this, we need champions to kind of go out and do these things, man. So big shout out, because I know this is going to change a lot of kids' lives when it comes to that. Because my first experience with basketball when I was super young was with the Winnipeg Thunder. And they did like a Thunderball. They had like these, things at the Y, and I got into playing it like that. So I know it's going to be a big opportunity for these young kids and future kids. So having said all of that, I want to rewind, and I want to look at your past, right? Obviously, I'd say that, hey, I got my past. I got my start. My exposure to the game early on was playing Thunder basketball. Now the CBERs are here. They're going to give other people an opportunity. But you didn't grow up here. You grew up in Toronto, in that GTA area, if I'm not mistaken. What are your first memories of basketball? How'd you get involved in the game? Who showed you the game? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my start in basketball comes down to a man named Terrence Phillips. Coach Terrence, if you're watching this or listening to this, thanks for everything. Coach Terrence was the guy who kind of convinced my mom to let me start playing basketball. In the first year I played, I was absolutely terrible. The reason I wanted to play is because all my friends were playing, right? Yeah. I had played soccer before, as most kids do. I didn't really like it. It wasn't really for me. Had really big feet as a kid, so it wasn't my thing. Yeah. So I tried basketball, and I got onto the team when we had provincials left. So just kind of like how we would have Manitoba club basketball here, we have something called, or had something, I'm not sure if it still exists, OBA in Ontario
yes,
basketball.
Yes.
Right. Perfect. So provincials is kind of like the culmination of the season at the end. And that's kind of where I had just gotten put onto the team. So we're in this final tournament. Everybody's been practicing all year. I already didn't play basketball as it was. Right. And I hadn't scored all tournament. We get to our finals, right? We're, I think, Division 3. So yeah, but anyways, we get to the finals,
Yeah.
right? And the other team is somebody's shooting a free throw, right? Well, the ball comes off the rim. I finally get the rebound and I put it in. And I start celebrating, man. I'm hyped, right?
Let's go.
And all I hear is Coach Terrence going, no, no, no. Like, what happened? Scored in the wrong basket. So scored in the wrong basket.
Oh, I love that.
My first memory of basketball. And then I went home after the weekend. Luckily we won in overtime. I scored the bucket to put it into overtime. Yeah, we ended up winning, so that was good. And then I went home to my grandpa. I lived primarily with my mom and grandpa during the week. And I said, Grandpa, I like this basketball thing, but I suck. And I don't want to suck. And he said in a Barbadian Bayesian accent, hey, you know what? We'll figure it out. And from that point forward, 7 a.m. every morning before school, he was outside with me on a little 9-foot rim, and we figured it out. By the next year, I was decent. So
yeah. And did he know anything about the game, or just like he's like, I'll just show you what I know? Like he was looking at books.
Yeah, he was looking at books. He got Better Basketball. I don't know if any of the listeners know Better Basketball.
Oh yeah.
Michael Jordan had a series. My grandpa's he's from the islands, right? He's traditionally like a tennis kind of cricket guy.
Yeah.
But as any supportive parent or grandparent would do, he did all the research he could and tried to help me get to the best that I could be.
Nice. So you start playing and you got better the following year, but what was it like after that? Because that's kind of like a introductory level basketball, right? At what point are you now, like you said, you were how old? 9?
At that time I was 9. 9,
yes.
Yeah.
So like when did you start? So 9, 10, like by what age were you like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this? Was it like, did it happen really quick, or was it like a slower development?
Yeah. So I went to that after that summer, or sorry, that season, I went to a Jamal McGlure basketball camp. I don't know if you guys, you know Jamal McGlure.
Legend. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. And I saw kind of what was out there in Toronto at least. And, I knew I had some catching up to do. My grandpa helping me out as well. And just, man, literally when I say every morning, like weekends, rain, hail, snow, whatever it was, right? My grandpa and I were out there getting shots up, taught me how to do a layup because at this point I still couldn't do one of those.
Yeah.
And then by the next season, I think I would have been around 15 a game. So big jump from -2 to 15. And man, from there is just something I fell in love with. And I told myself, okay, I've caught up, and in some cases I've surpassed.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to go back to not being good again. Never. It can't happen. So grandpa and I stayed true to it, and we every morning kept going all the way up till probably about the 9th grade. Even when I was, I don't know if I'm going too far ahead here, but even when I was home, university was coming home from New Mexico or Pennsylvania over the summer times. Grandpa was there. He would come outside, rebound for me. Coach Terrence would open up a gym for us, and we'd have like our family training camp. I remember there'd be a few trainers that would kind of reach out to me and, kind of want to help the D1 guy out, but it was like, no, I'm okay. I appreciate it, but I got my family kind of dynamic here, and that's kind of how we built it and trained.
Yeah. So pretty much, you had pretty much two mentors on the basketball side of things that were super critical early on. Yeah. So okay, so you're moving up, you're getting better. In Toronto, like, did you play at a traditional high school? Were you doing the, like, I don't know if it was the prep thing around, but in your day, like, what was your step? Like, walk us through that, because again, like, you're not from here, so it's not like you're like, hey, I went to St. Paul's and you had a different route. So just walk us through that.
For sure. So it's funny how everything ties together. So because I went to that Jamal McGlure camp when I was 10 for the first time, and I went back when I was 11, right? I met a couple coaches, one named Colin Charles. Colin Charles was a standout at St. John's University, and he also played at Eastern Commerce with Jamal McGlure.
Okay.
There was another one, Waleed. I don't remember Waleed's last name, to be honest with you, but again, another guy that was at that age very influential in my life. And then when it was time to go to high school, I asked my mom if I could apply at Eastern, right? Because I knew that's where all the coaches went. That's where Jamal went.
Yeah.
If there's anybody listening in Toronto, they know about the basketball powerhouse that was Eastern Commerce.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's where I
I know
went.
about that.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
That's where I went from grade 9 to 11. And Eastern Commerce, to give you a little bit more background, is, or it's shut down now, but the school had low attendance, right? And pretty much if you went there to play basketball. Like you were there to try and make a team. So it
Yeah.
was a very competitive environment where everybody was at each other's throats. And I think that helped me in my ability to just the grit, the toughness that I had to develop to keep persevering and all that stuff when it came to the game. That's where that definitely would have came from.
Mm.
Um, Now, so that was, we were doing the OSTA thing. So to answer your question about the prep thing, after grade 11 there, I left and went to a school in Markham, Ontario called Bill Crothers, where I met Charles Hantamakos. And I'd say up until that point, I probably was a skilled basketball player in terms of, I could run, jump, shoot, whatever I need to do, but I didn't know how to play basketball yet. I
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say I was more of a shooting guard because I didn't know how to make any reads. I didn't know how to pass. I didn't know what angles were. I didn't know any of that stuff. And Coach Charles, or Unlucky Chucky, as I like to call him, took me and a couple other players under his wing and helped it develop to the point where we knew the game pretty well. A couple other people that went there with me, Trey Bell Haynes, who's
Yeah.
played in the CEBL as well, plays
Mhm.
overseas, doing pretty well right now. Team Canada guy. It's one of my best friends actually. So that was a fun time.
Nice. Nice. So how'd you get to New Mexico? You got to tell us this because I think I know part. I remember part of this story because we've had this conversation before. But you end up going to New Mexico. So talk a little bit about what your opportunities were after you play some prep. Now you have a decision to make, right? Like you're getting recruited by schools. What was that like? Did you have other schools recruiting you? Did you do visits?
Yeah. So I did. I didn't actually. My problem was I didn't do any visits. Okay. For anybody listening at home, take your visits if you can. Okay? So back then, Canadians going to Division I schools still wasn't as common as it is today, right? So I played AAU with Grassroots Canada that summer. Ro Russell. I don't know if
Mhm.
you've heard before, but
Yep. Yep.
name in the basketball Toronto world. And I picked up a few offers there, or not offers, but interest, right? New Mexico State being one of them. After a game we played against Mac Urban Fire. It was a Nike showcase, and that year Mac Urban Fire was in the EYBL. They would have had like Jaleel Okafor, Jalen Brunson.
Hmm. Hmm.
Who else would be on that team? Cliff Alexander, Marcus Levette, like some pretty big names, right? And I had a decent game, and coach told me I had picked up some stuff after that. At this point, I don't really remember who the rest were, but yeah. So, anyways, I come back for my senior year at Bill Crothers after that, right? And it's just about trying to pick up more as well as maintain what I already have so that I
Yeah.
can go somewhere after my grade 13 in Ontario. Um, the other schools would have been schools that I didn't have the grades to get into. I had a few Ivy League schools, which I would have loved to have gone to, but
Yeah.
unfortunately wasn't an amazing student. So that didn't happen. But yeah, that's kind of how things went. And then I showed up. I left my grade 13 year a little bit early because the coaches at New Mexico State wanted me to get there in May for whatever reason. So I left, took off, and that was it. I hadn't left home for that long of a time forever. So
Wow. That must have been a wild experience because yeah, that's like you're going to New Mexico. That's the thing. What city is it in?
Las Cruces.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it. It's a small town, like a city, like
Uh,
a university city, or is it
it's a smaller city, but I wouldn't say it's
okay?
a small city. It's somewhere in the middle. It's not quite Winnipeg, but it's definitely bigger than say like a Brandon, or like
Okay.
if there was no university, there's still stuff going on.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And that was, like I said, that must have been a massive change though for you, right? Like
Oh yeah,
you're going to play, Division I basketball, but you're leaving home and you're in just generally, like, again, the States is so varied depending on where you go.
for sure.
That must have been a weird change. But tell me about your first year there, because again, obviously you transferred after that, right? So I'm guessing it wasn't like the best experience.
For me, it was I struggled.
Mm,
I played in every game, but I wasn't able to put it all together. Let's put it that way, right?
mm, mm,
And I knew that I was supposed to go back there. It was the idea. But after our season, our head coach had received a coaching job offer at a bigger school, at
okay.
UNLV to be exact. So when that happened and our assistant coach became the head coach, I want to say half, but that number might not be completely accurate, but a good chunk of us had to go somewhere else, right? We got
Okay.
cut. From there, I knew if I wanted to play right away and not sit out, I had to go down to a Division II school.
Got it.
Right? So I did that. And the school that I chose, because it was such short notice by the time I had to make that decision, I just chose the one that was closest to home. I had a
Yeah.
car. If I was in California, Pennsylvania, which for the people that don't know, a lot of the cities in Pennsylvania are named after other states. So it is actually in Pennsylvania. 6 hour drive from Toronto, right? So I was
Okay.
like, okay, I'm just gonna go there. Even if my experience is terrible, at least I can see my family this time, right?
Yeah.
From my New Mexico experience, I didn't see my family for like a year and a half. So
Wow.
I was just, first time kid leaving the house. I was like, you know what? I just want to go somewhere where I can check in on my, my pops, my mom, grandparents, see how they're doing.
Yeah.
So I get there. Things are going pretty well. And I think it's like our second game of the season, right? And one of my teammates kind of flops on an out of bounds play, and he falls into the side of my leg, and my ankle just topples over, right? So obviously I'm out, can't play. I told coaches like, I'm gonna need a few games off, and at first they were like, okay, right, that's take your time,
Yeah.
heal up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But kind of like the import situation as a pro, it's kind of like that for, especially at the D2 level, because they don't have the same budget for
Mm-hmm.
import players. Because I'm not an American born, they got to pay a little bit more for a scholarship, right? So they
Yeah.
have me sitting there not playing, and we're losing on top of that. Wasn't good,
Yeah.
right? So then you recently apologized for this. I think the last time I told you the story was a little bit more gruesome, but the full story for those who haven't heard it. So I was trying to rush back because they started to apply some pressure saying, we need you out there. And I just kept telling them like, yeah, I'll try and play, but I can't run yet. I can barely walk. Like I'm struggling to get to class. Right. So I'm taking ibuprofen, doing as much as I can, doing the rehab, whatever. And I'm asking them, hey guys, like, you think you could send me for an x-ray so I can like check this thing out, make sure it's not like structurally something's going to mess me up forever. And they were like, no, like wouldn't let me take the x-ray. All right.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah. So then finally I get to go home again for a longer period of time for winter break. Right. I think we had like a week off or so. And the first thing I do when I get there is my mom takes me to the hospital and we get an x-ray done. Right. And the doctor says by this point, there's nothing wrong with it structurally, but it
Okay.
looks like it had been fractured and started to heal with a point. Right. So I had played on it for so long, my body had started to try to adapt to it the socket's supposed to be smooth and the tendons are supposed to be able to just rub on it, right? Now
Yeah.
imagine if it started to heal like this. So now when your tendons rubbing on it, it's all wonky, right? So I get back to school and I'm talking to the coach and I said, hey, like, just so you know, I probably should sit out for a while. Like, this is what they're telling me. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, you can do that. Just keep in mind there's a $30,000 scholarship on the line.
Wow.
Right. So obviously, me, I don't have any money. I'm like, oh, if I want this education, I better figure it out. So ibuprofen up and try and play through
Damn.
it. Obviously, that's not an ideal situation. And again, I found myself having to transfer. Right. So did you want to, should I keep going with
No,
how
no, keep
that?
rolling, man. Yeah, no. Yeah, I always tell people like the ones that I'm not talking means it's good. Like I'm just like, yo,
Okay, okay.
let
Okay.
you cook, man. This is great.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So then it came time for me to make another decision. And I was just going to go to the University of Toronto, not to play sports, but just, go to school. But Coach Charles Hentamakos, he wasn't really trying to hear that. He said, I think you still have, you're hurt right now, but I think you get healthy and I think you still got a little bit more life in your basketball career. And I said, okay, well, what do you think? And he reached out to a couple schools for me and they reached out. It was like the University of Toronto, obviously, because it's home.
Yep.
McGill was on the list and couple others. I didn't put it out there that I was transferring back home, right? I think the story goes that Kirby told me is I couldn't get into McGill. McGill's a pretty high academic school.
Mm-hmm.
So he reached out to Kirby, the coach at McGill. And then Kirby reached out to me. And at first I was like, I'm not taking that visit. Like I told my mom who was contacting me, I said, no, I'm not going to Manitoba. There's no way. Right. Because to the Toronto kid who,
Yeah.
big city, right? I'm thinking Winnipeg is more like, I don't know, somewhere small town Manitoba, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No malls, no,
Like Brandon, maybe more like a Brandon.
I didn't want to say Brandon.
Ah, I'm just saying, hey, it's all good. Brandon's small,
We love Brandon, but sure, we'll go
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Brandon. Okay.
I said it. Don't worry.
There you go. That's better. So yeah, that's what I was expecting. Right. And then, she's just like, well, you don't like being at that school anyways. Why not just get out for a little bit, take a trip, make a trip out of it. You don't have to commit there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, mama knows best. I'm gonna take the trip, right? I went and absolutely fell in love with the school, right? The guys were cool. Kirby was cool. I don't know if anybody remembers this time, but this is when my visit was the day after Kirby had just wrecked his knee at Sky Zone, right?
I
So
saw that video, man. Oh my God, I
man, did you
cannot.
hear the pop? Man, it's crazy,
Oh, anyway, Kirby. Anyways, continue.
right? So to give you a little bit more background, my school, my coach at California's University of Pennsylvania was a
Yeah,
yellow schooler. I couldn't play for that, right?
yeah,
So my only criteria for finding if I was going to play again was finding a nice guy as a coach. That was it, right?
yes.
When I first had committed to Kirby, I had no idea that he actually knew what he was talking about. No idea. I was like, okay, yeah, he coached for Team Canada. Like, I'm sure that means something, but I wasn't paying
Yeah.
attention, right? This is how nice the guy was. Calls me, says, hey, but the day before the visit. So he must have got hurt 2 days before the visit. So he calls me the day before the visit. Hey, do you mind if we reschedule, or are you able to reschedule? I had an accident. I won't be able to take you on the tour. And I was like, because I didn't want to go anyways. I was like, coach, like, I'm good, man. Like, no worries. Like, if I can't come tomorrow, like, it's all good. Like, I don't want to waste your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was just like, nope, I'll set it up. I'll figure something out. Right. So I was like, well, okay. I get there, one coach is picking me up from the airport. Brian Dobie, the coach of the football team, who
Shut
might
up.
be the single best recruiter I've ever.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. He's good.
Dobie does his
Ogo,
thing.
yeah. Ogo was involved in it.
Oh,
Like,
go, yeah.
guys took me out. I had a workout with Coach Surgeon, who turned out to be another great influence in my basketball career, taught me how to play the European way, as he would call it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so no, I met Kirby for the first time laid up in a hospital.
Oh, you went to
Tied
go
off.
visit him?
Yeah, man, that was part of
Part of
the.
the visit was, yo, we got to go see coach. He's in the hospital. I don't even know this guy.
Yeah, no. So I saw him in the hospital. He's laid up. He's got his knee elevated, obviously. Man, high off. I don't know what they had him on. Probably some morphine or something. Nice guy. And I was like, well, it's either the drugs or he's really that nice, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I came back to my school, called my mom, my second school, called my mom, told her I think this is where I want to be, and then the rest is kind of history.
Wow. Wow. I mean, what's funny is like, I mean, you probably would have ended up there anyways, but you got to see Dobie, Ogo, like all these people, and they're all just good people, man. Like if that's almost like a ploy. It's like, hey, I'm gonna have some other people come pick you up, and you're gonna get to meet all these cool people that are just like awesome, and they're gonna like slowly integrate you. Because you couldn't have met a better group of people. Be introduced to University of Manitoba, and then after you got to meet Kirby high on morphines. It was great. Kirby's already, like you said, he's already a nice guy. This guy's on morphine. You're
Right?
like, oh, great. This is great. He's not gonna ever yell at me.
Yeah.
So, but in between that time, so just so I'm clear, did you end up going to UT just to school, or were you not in school? Like, what was like? I'm a little bit confused from like you're at the Pennsylvania, and you go back home and you're chilling, and during that year you were looking at schools.
No, so I went to University of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
I was only there for 1 year, as you said. So
Yep.
I got cut, and then I had to come home right after that. And
Yep.
then while I was at home, I was
Okay.
going to team, not as a student, just kind of like working out with the team, staying around the game. And then I had to make the choice between them and.
Got it. And then, so did you get a surgery on clearing up the stuff in your ankle?
No, man. I tell the story, and it sounds made up. There was one day I was playing basketball, right, and I was hurting, right, and I just made a normal crossover, and I felt a little pop, and I heard a click, right. Sounds fake, right. After that day, pain was gone. I have no other explanation for how that happened.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
Well, it seems legitimate, right? Because it seems like it was just a growth from like the fracture, right? And so you had some stuff there, and it just got ripped off, and then you're like, oh, it's good, because that's what the pain was, right? Your ligaments are rubbing up against it, but if there's nothing to rub against and it breaks off, then technically you don't have any pain, right?
Sure. And again, like I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. If that's not a sign that, I was supposed to be at U of M and things were supposed to play out the way they did, and all those struggles that I went through kind of, toughened me up a little bit and made me a little stronger, then yeah, it's kind of crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting, man. Like, and again, like, I started off by saying like Winnipeg's home now. Winnipeg's home. And this is, again, you interviewing people, so many people, you hear these moments, right, that take place that like just change the trajectory of your life. And then you have like this decision, like there's always like this fork in the road, right? And had you not got injured, like I would probably never be talking to you. And who's to say you don't go on and do other stuff, right? But the point being is I'm always so interested in the reason how people got to the place they're at and the decisions they made along the way. And it's just an interesting reflection when you look back, right? Because you're like, I'm going to win it. This is Winnipeg. I'm not going there like crazy. I'm not even going to go to this visit. And it's interesting because if you rewind, you said, you know what, I probably should have went to that more visits. I probably should have went to those visits in New Mexico, right? I probably you literally said that, and then you were about to not go on a visit. Your mom's like, "Just go. What's wrong with you? Go
Right.
check it out."
Right.
So
You have to lose.
that's so interesting, man. So interesting. So, your time at U of M, like, I mean, you went on. You had a quite the run. We read on your bio there. Obviously, your individual statistics, right? You had a lot of success as a team as well. I got to ask just straight up. So did Kirby turn out to be as nice as he was when he was laid up in bed?
Kirby yelled at me over the course of 3 years, one time. One
Really?
time, right?
Amazing. That's amazing.
And like when he yelled at me, I was like, okay, you're
Yeah.
probably
Yeah. Yeah.
right. Right. So no, it's not it wasn't an act, it wasn't a facade. Like that is
Yep.
really what genuinely a nice guy. I obviously I'm on the coaching staff for U of M
Yes.
now. But I don't believe in like I would never tell a player to come play for Kirby if I didn't actually believe that it was a really good thing for them.
Hmm.
And just the way that he was able to revive my career, I'm a heavy believer. I don't think that there's just one Rashawn Browne out there, right? I don't think I'm the only kid that had this kind of a struggle.
Hmm.
We start off in high school and we have the skill to get there, but for some reason it doesn't work out,
Hmm.
right? Take my case and then look at how I was able to play for the Rattlers and play against the same competition that I was playing against at the D1 level
Yep.
and be better than okay, right?
Yep.
So I don't think that's just me. And I think, my message, I know we're kind of going off a tangent here, but my message for anybody kind of going through that is find a coach that you can, everybody wants to come home. They want to go to the Carleton. They want to go to the Ryerson,
Hmm.
right? Find a coach that believes in you, that wants you to, be who you can be, right? Because at
Hmm.
the end of the day, Kirby ultimately saved my career.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out. And I mean, realistically, every time I talk to a former player of his, and it always comes up his impact on them. Just as like just we haven't even talked about him as a person, right? You're talking about him as a coach, but the one thing I always found with Kirby and the things people say is that his the personal impact of him and his attitude and his ability to kind of connect with people always shines through, right?
Yeah.
We all know, everyone who's ever listened to Kirby speak about basketball knows he's an excellent teacher, right? Like that's without question. But the thing that they may not know is how well he connects with his players, and that's something that I've heard from like every one of his players. Like, no, like he's I trust that guy. Like he's it's more than just coaching with him, right? And I think that's super important.
Yeah, now the dynamic that we kind of have is cool because, I played for him. I was able to be successful in the system that he likes to run. He changed the systems, but his way of thinking is similar,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So now I'm able to kind of bridge the gap in any, he's a really good coach. Don't get me wrong when I'm saying this, but any kind of deficiency in communication where a player might not be able to
Mm-hmm.
understand, I'm able to kind of now put what he's saying into players' terms, right? As
Yeah.
coaches, we have the tendency to kind of say, "Hey, Darcy, this is your position. I want you to come off the screen. When you come off the screen, your options are A and B, right?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, as a player who's especially a young guy, which is what we have a lot of right now, you might think what coach is saying is law, and like I have to get to that spot marked with an X, and if I'm not with my right foot on
Yeah.
the right corner and left foot
Yeah.
on the, you know what I mean? I'm wrong, right? So for me to be able to just kind of translate that with the player's eye, as I didn't finish playing too long ago, I think it's been a very good partnership.
Yeah. So do you see yourself kind of like you're obviously enjoying it?
I'm enjoying it. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
really fun. It's different than I would have expected. It's I think as players, as different generations of players come through, and I'm not very far removed, right? But you got to
Mm-hmm.
find different ways of motivating people,
For
right?
sure.
The Yeller Screamer coach might have worked in the 70s. That didn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice guy might work for me that won't work for somebody else. You never know, right? But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's all about adapting and stuff like that.
So then what would you say is the thing you enjoy the most about it?
About U of M?
About coaching, yeah, like because I mean, you're coaching college basketball, like so, like you're at these games. Is it just the connection to the energy? The like, what is the thing that stand out to you that make you enjoy the process of coaching?
Yeah, man. It's just and competition, man.
Mm,
Competition. I've always been the guy, if we're throwing water balloons, who can throw it the farthest.
mm-hmm.
Fortunately, sorry, people that I compete with for no reason, but and it's like the way I see basketball as coaching is like, and Kirby says it the best. Like, it's not his team and we're the players, right? It's our team. We're together. These are our
Mm,
guys, right? But
mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
imagine being so. I describe it as this: when I was playing for Kirby, let's say we're in a fight with the other team, right? And
Yeah,
Kirby's standing there with his hands tied behind his back. He can't do anything to help himself in this fight.
yeah,
It's my job to kind of take his instruction and go fight for him, right? Well,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
on the other
yeah,
side of that, right? And it's like, I like the fact that I have a group of guys that are willing to every day go out and fight for us. And that's what I love.
yeah, yeah. It's about being part of that larger group.
Yeah.
So then, if we rewind, and now if we focus on you going back to your playing career, I got to bring this up because, like, when you're playing in the American system, and then you had mentioned, right? Hey, I'm learning to play European ball, and I'm learning. Like, we know U Sport is slightly different than just the NCAA generally, or that American style. So, like, how did your game change? And what was the process of like adapting your game, and how quickly did you adapt from like jumping in from your first year there all the way to the last year?
Yeah. So what I realized in talking to surgeon is, okay, I got to use terminology that's radio friendly here. I'm going to use
we
the
beep,
word,
we'll beep it out.
I'm going to use the word American. Okay. Playing
Okay.
American, North American style basketball is really, well, maybe it's changed as of late, but
Mhm.
originally it was really fast, really strong, hit you. I'm more athletic than you are. Right. Of course, you got
Yes.
to be able to shoot, dribble, whatever. Right.
Yep.
But him and I had a conversation one day, and we're still close to this day. Where it was kind of like, if Rashawn Browne is going to try and out athlete people, I might play pro, but it won't be a very
Mm,
successful career, right?
yes.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm pretty athletic, or was pretty athletic, but in the grand scheme of things, not very athletic, right? If you look at guys in the NBA, if you look at guys high level overseas, if 10 is the top, I'm probably a 4 or 5,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's okay if I'm 4 or 5, but I learn how to play basketball like the ones and twos, right?
Yes.
If I can
Yes.
learn my
Yes.
angles, if I can learn, hey, coming off a ball screen full speed isn't necessarily my best bet. Coming off a
Hmm.
ball screen full speed, turning your shoulder, being able to keep control of the ball while keeping a guy back here so that, I can still see what's going on, but I'm not having to move full speed. And now that I'm not moving full speed, decisions happen a lot easier because, things aren't flying by me. They're moving at
Yeah.
my pace. Boom, 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 right?
Hmm. Hmm. For
Stuff
sure.
like
For
that.
sure. Yeah. No. And I think just a key thing to point out because I think people struggle with that. I mean, I think that struggle can even take place even just playing in Canada and going up to play new sport, right? But the people who master that part of the game, or at least develop that part of the game,
Mm.
and you said it perfectly, right? Like, oh, if I have 4 level athleticism and I can combine that with this, and like your overall like attributes, it just goes up, right? And your positive effect in the game is just that much more, which is super cool. So after you're done playing, man, like again, I listed off your resume here. Obviously, like you're an all Canadian. You're a conference all star. You're male athlete of the year at the university. Obviously, you're the leader of the team. Um, like tell us about like the CBL and like because this was what the year 2 of the league, I believe it was early on.
Yes. Year 2, I believe. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So then what
Uh,
was that transition like? I mean, you're finishing off and you're now going on to play pro. Did you know you wanted to do it? Was it did it come out of nowhere? Was it a plan?
no. So yeah. So funny story. So I remember at the beginning of my last season at U of M, we have like a coaches group chat, we have a players group chat. And I changed the title of our players group chat to 2019-2020 Canada West champions. Right. And I remember people being like, well, why'd you do that? It's like, because what we're gonna do. It's like that was my one goal remaining for my
Mm,
basketball career. Because of all the struggle I'd gone through, I literally had no desire to play professionally. It wasn't something, it's not that I wouldn't have done it. It was just it
mm,
wasn't what I was shooting for, right?
yeah,
My
yeah.
whole existence, basketball existence, was wrapped around trying to be the best player that I could be so I could help this team get to nationals. Right. So obviously we fell short of that. But in that process of me just trying every day to be great and try to win every game and taking it one game at a time, I wound up having a decent season. Right. From that point, I remember we went, and when I went with Kirby to accept my All Canadian award in Ottawa, I had the CEBL flags up everywhere. And I was like, hey, Kirby, you think I can play in that? Like, you think I'm good enough? And he goes, yeah, I mean, like we could probably, talk to somebody and get you on some roster. He's like, you want to try? I'm like, sure. And then in the car, he calls Sask. He's like, hey, what do you guys think about Rashawn Browne? And he's like, and they said I was on the radar and I didn't know if they're going to pick me. But coming up closer to the season, they called and said, hey, we want to take you with our second pick, which because at the time there was 6 teams, right?
Okay, yeah.
First round, so they picked a guy from their team. Second round, I got picked. And then third round, they picked a guy from their team again, right? So I was excited, right? I think we talked about this before, but then, I'm staying in shape. Everything's good. And then boom, COVID hits. So the world kind of shuts down. It wasn't something I was shooting for, but now that I was in it, I was kind of sad about it, thought this was going to be, the next step, like, and who knows what comes after that. Right. So I, get a little out of shape, everybody's kind of stuck in the house. And then one day I get a call, and this is like, maybe I want to say 2 weeks before maybe 3 weeks before we got to go to the bubble. And they're like, hey, we're going to actually have this bubble season. Are you interested in playing if we do? And I was like, yeah, please let me know where I got to be and when. They're like, okay, well, your flight's on this date, be ready. So I went, and I think I ordered it from Amazon, like some of those Libert bars. I don't know if you remember those yellow kind of, it's all I could fit in my basement apartment. Right. So started just trying to get in shape. I'm dribbling in my basement. My little puppy's trying to chase the ball around. I don't even have a space to really train. And I got ready. I wasn't in shape when I got there, but training camp, for that first week, kind of shook me back into enough. It's kind of overweight, kind of pudgy at the time, but ends up having a decent season there. So it was interesting.
That's interesting. So then, like, you only played the one season though, right?
Yeah, only played one season. The plan was I had actually signed a contract to go after that season to Turkey. But just with COVID and things like that, didn't work out. So I found myself just having to go ahead and start my career. Now I work in finance. That's what I've been up to lately.
So it's interesting because, again, like you're like, I don't really want to play pro, but then you end up you play pro, and then you're like, you had a contract to go to Turkey, and had things just not been pandemic, you probably would have went and at least played it 1 year.
Yeah, I think so. When I watched the competition over there, because it was second league Turkey, right? So
okay,
first league Turkey is like big basketball, right? Second league Turkey's good, but it's very doable, and I found it comparable to something slightly higher than USPORTS. And I was like, okay, well, I just finished doing what I did in the CEBL. This should be something I can handle, right? And then from there, the plan was to try and slowly level up. But when you don't get to take that first step, I didn't have the means at the time as a just fresh graduated student to hold off long enough to see where I could go with it, right? So I was like, okay, time to start working, time to get into it.
Yeah. Hey man, you're a rare breed. I mean, obviously, I know you kept playing basketball, right? Like I interviewed Graham Bodner, my good friend, and I know you're a team. Are you playing with him this year? You playing with him in the past year? You playing with him this year as well?
Yep.
Man, well, it's crazy. I'm interviewing all his teammates now. Interviewed X as well. But you obviously play senior men, so like you still love the game. You're still around the game, you're still part of the game. You're wearing the CEBL shirt. You're on the board of directors, so you're still connected, and you still get to get out and run and play. Even though you're not, playing professionally, you're still playing basketball. And I think that's the key element here is, you love the game and you're still involved in it.
Definitely have to be, whether it's coaching or playing. I don't know how long the body holds up when you're not doing it every day. Every time I show up to a men's league game and I am, still okay, I'm like, oh, all right, well, I survived another week. Let's see if I can do it again. And because I don't, like I said, now I just play at the men's league, so there's obviously rust, and there's to be games where I'll be not very good, and there's games where I'm pretty close to where I was, and it's like it's a crazy dynamic.
Hey, well, I'll put it this way: I interviewed X, and he's like, "Yo, I want to play till I'm whatever." He's like, "I don't keep playing forever." And then I'll say the same thing I said to him. I'm not that you're saying that, but hey, if Ogo's 40, 45, I don't know how old that man is, 45 maybe. This guy's still out here playing, man. You're a young buck. You got like 10 more years left in you, man. Come on now.
Ogo's got some sort of.
Souk as well. Souk out here too, like 40. That guy, I swear, is not aged, man. I don't know how these
You
guys are
know,
doing that. Graham
that's
too. Graham's 40, 42.
Elliot.
Elliot, there you go, man. Elliot, shout out to Elliot. I can't believe this guy. This guy's still out here doing like playing.
Elliot will give you 40 on a random
It's
night.
crazy, right? I mean, it's crazy. I don't know how these guys do it, man. I'm with you. Like, if I'm not playing basketball, I'll still be like, I can do other stuff, but like playing at like a level that you want to play at, you're like, I can't do that. Like, I hear you, but um, all that said, we're gonna wrap up soon. I still have like 2 or 3 more questions, so these ones are just gonna be direct questions. I always ask people, and I'm curious to see if you have a story. I always ask it because some people have it, some people don't. Some people are like, this is hard. So 2 straight questions. One is your most memorable basketball story or moment.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's tough.
I got so many. Like to say like the most.
You can give me a couple. Doesn't have to be one. What are the first ones that came to mind when you're kind of like racking your mind? What's popping it up into your mind?
I'd say missing that. Scoring that wrong basket.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, wow.
I love that because you're so young and it's still stuck with you to this day. I love that. I love that.
And like you said before, like things happen for a reason. Like if I don't do that, do I have the same motivation over that summer to then turn into what I did? Right. A negative one is, so when we played Alberta in the semifinal game to go to nationals, I missed the game-winning shot. That is a shot that I will never forget. That one will never leave me.
Yeah.
I think, off of just the top of my mind, that's probably the biggest two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 2 misses.
Well, no, it's interesting because I've got to interview some pretty people who won a lot, and I was interviewing Jerry Hemmings, and I asked him this question, and all he talked about, this guy's won like tons of national championships, conference championships, and you know what he brought up? The losses.
Yeah.
I was like, so having said that, tell us a little bit about that game leading up to that shot. I mean, obviously, I don't want to, I'm going to, bring you back there, but you brought it up as a memorable moment in the sense that you didn't make the shot. Had you made that shot, win the game, go to nationals?
Yeah. So I was having a decent game. I thought that, I was ready to hit the shot. I remember, so we're up, I want to say, let's call it 2. That makes sense. We're up 2, right? They have the ball. They get kind of like a cheap layup at the rim and tie it up, right? Coach calls a timeout, draws up a play. I'm supposed to run up the right side of the key, get the ball, come off a screen. I should be able to get one off, right? So I get the ball. Sorry, I trip on the way over, get up off the floor, get the ball, come off the ball screen like we always do, and I shoot the ball, but they switch it this time, right? There's not enough time for me to so they switched another bigs on me. There's not enough time for me to pull out and go at them, right? It's like 3, 2, 1 kind of scenario, right? So the guy's 6'8"ish. I can't see the rim, but I shoot it, right? And I see the ball and it looks like it's going in, right? If I watch, and you can find the clip online, it hurts, but you can find it, right? It looks even on camera like it's going in, and it just falls short, air ball, just literally short of the rim. And my shoulders dropped, and I was like, okay, overtime, and we weren't able to pull it out. I think that would have definitely been a David versus Goliath story of us beating Alberta that year, and that was something I really, like I said, that was my only goal for the year, right? I'm not a big emotional guy. I was in tears, man. The whole team in the locker room after was pretty hurt after that one. So, like I said, we're all hugging and stuff that we probably won't admit to. Me and Surgeon, Surgeon, if you listen to this, we hugged for a while there, teared up. That's my guy. But yeah, no, that's why that one's so memorable. Yeah. But to the question you asked before, I thought of another moment, and maybe somebody else can relate to this too. So when I was questioning myself, can I actually play in the CEBL? Right. My first game was against the Niagara River Lions, and Daniel Mullings was one of their main guys. Now, when I was at New Mexico State, Daniel Mullings was the guy, right? Really good basketball player, super athletic. He would be on that scale of that 10. He'd be like an 8 or 9, right? Athlete, right? And he used to absolutely abuse me as a freshman. 5th year guy, beating up on the rookie, right? And he used to kill me. Right. So naturally, you go into the game, I have a bit of a flashback. I'm like, man, all right. And I remember I don't remember who I was talking to. Maybe it was my lady maybe it was Montana. And then anyways, They're like, well, just go be you. I was like, never thought about that. So I told myself, I don't care what kind of look it is. When I sub into this game, I'm letting it up. All
Yeah.
right. First dribble, boom. They're not on me right away. He's closing out slowly. Hit it. It's like, okay, all right, I can do this. All right. The second one, though, is probably my most memorable shot because it was what I was doing at U of M, right? Is what the kind of carryover happened for me. And it was
Mhm.
kind of like a tween, dribble, snatch back, hit a jumper. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like, in that moment of just like, I can do this. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not as out of my element as I thought. And then it just kept rolling. And I was like, okay, like, there's really no difference here. It's just go be you, just as she said.
Yeah. 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 That's crazy. That full circle. It's weird how we put those limitations on ourselves. Hey,
Oh
like you're
man.
like, oh man, this guy's here, and right away, like, but you haven't seen this guy, and you're both on the same floor, so there's no reason why, but you have these limitations that you put there until sometimes it takes people to say, hey, yo, what are you doing? Yeah, you're good, and sometimes it takes moments, sometimes it takes a bit of both, but
And it was funny because I'm normally not that guy that's like worried about that. But man,
yeah.
the abuse that guy used man,
You had some PTSD.
man, PTSD. And man, like I'm sure, my rookies would have felt the same, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah, for
just
sure.
the circle of basketball life, right?
For sure. That's the way it goes. All right.
Yeah.
So next one I got here. I don't know if maybe it's the scoring on maybe your most one of your most memorable and the funniest moments, the same one scoring your own basket, but you got a funniest basketball story moment.
Funniest basketball moment. Man, I think it would just be like the time with the guys, man. Like when
Yeah.
I'm playing basketball, I get locked in. Like I'm not always the most fun guy to be around while I'm playing, but the road trips with the guys, the going out with the guys, the laughs, the bus rides. You would think that those plane rides and those bus rides would be the worst, man. They're pretty
Yeah.
fun. Like you just, you don't get those times back, right? So I would
Yeah.
say all the jokes cracked on those, hanging out with Kirby, hanging out with the guys. I think
Yeah.
that was most
Yeah.
memorable. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a
No,
funny
for
thing.
sure. That's a
Yeah.
good one. I like that. Just like the culmination of all of it together as
Yeah.
experiences. It's funny you mentioned that like right away. And I was thinking back to when I was playing, and like I fly a lot now, but back then, man, those flights were so fast because like you're on there with your boy, like you guys are goofing around. Of course, some people sleep, but it was completely different now. Like I'm flying alone, like it's just chill, whatever. But you're in college, you're goofing around and stuff like that. So yeah, bus rides, like on long bus rides, but it's no sweat, even though it would be in any other situation. Like I don't want to send this bus for 4 hours or whatever. So yeah, you're totally right. That's a good one.
That'd be
No one. I heard people say like, "Oh, my teammates," stuff like that, but they've never said like the times on the planes, on the just goofing around stuff like that. So that's a good one.
times outside of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, so last question I have here. You're now an assistant coach with the Bisons. We talked about the Sea Bears. You're on the board. You have all these experiences with basketball. What do you think is the most important thing in developing young players? So if you reflect back on your experience and your time developing, learning pitfalls, what do you think are those things that a coach would need to know or a young player? And when I say young, it can be, it can be from 9, the young Rashawn to even a young college player. What are some of those skills or intangibles or mindsets that they need to have to develop properly in the game of basketball?
Yeah. Well, from a physical spot, I always say for young kids, always train as if you're never going to grow again. Right.
That's a
I
good one.
always see, there's always a kid on a team who they're really good when they're kids, right? They're the tallest kid, but by the time they get to the eighth, ninth grade, right, they never worked on any guard skills,
Yeah.
right? And now they can't really figure out where their niche is or where they fit in,
Yeah.
right? I'd
Yeah.
always rather be the kid who, you know, even if I'm super tall, right? Even if let's say I'm a 6'4", 12-year-old, right? I'm huge, right? Why would I not work on guard skills? If
Yeah.
I get 18 and I'm 6'4", trying to play a center, I'm little. All right. If I grow and now I'm, 6'9", but I've got guard skills, that's what I've been working on. Well, now I'm a
Mhm.
big point guard, big shooting guard.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I'd always rather be on that side than on the other side.
True,
I think
true.
that'd be probably the biggest mistake that I see amongst trainers and coaches today is that work with the young is that they're training kids for what they play now, right? And if the
Mm,
goal is to get them as far in the game as they can, I think it's always best to work on the small stuff. We can always add the big stuff later. I think
mhm.
I stood a better chance as a guard learning how to post up and learn a drop step, a hook shot than a big who would then have to learn, okay, how do I dribble? How do I read the floor?
Yeah.
You look at a guy like Giannis, right? What if he only was taught big man skills? He's probably not what he is today, right?
True. That's interesting. Yeah, I never heard that one before. That's a good one. That's a good piece of advice. All right, man. No, this has been good. So before we jump though, I see the jerseys that are framed in the background. Are those the Rattlers? Is that the CEBL? We have two
on that side.
Yeah.
And then those are my.
Oh, there's two. Okay, there's two. Okay, nice. Wait, hold up. Wait, hold on. There's no Bison one? What's going on?
I got to talk to Kirby about getting one.
Come on, Kirby. What's going on? Wait, hold up.
Kirby, if you're listening, I'll take my yellow number 4 back anytime. Thank you.
We got to work on that, man. We got to send an email. I'm gonna say, right? Concerned alumni. We need to get this jersey going on here.
I would love to throw one in there. So yeah, if you can swing that, please do.
Hey, but you're on the staff. You're gonna see him tomorrow, man.
Just walk in the bag. It's mine. And
like, hey, look, man, you owed me something. You know what? So, no, that's good, man. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. And obviously, like again, good luck in. Good luck in obviously with the rest of the season with the Bisons, man. Obviously off to a crazy start. This has to be one of the better starts I would say in the team's history. What do you guys? 13-1.
13-1.
Yeah,
they should beat our record. They should.
I was gonna say, yeah, if they continue down this stretch. So good luck with the rest of the season. I'm hoping that this is the start of Coach Browne.
We'll see.
I'm hoping that's a start, man. You got the right voice for it. You got the right persona. I think you know a lot of the people who you hear this often with people who have gone through struggle in their career, and then after have come out on the other side, they end up being really good coaches, right? So if it's something that gives you that ignites a passion, man, I definitely suggest kind of continuing on with it, because I'm sure you're going to be able to affect a lot of people, just like Kirby did, just like some of your coaches did as well, man. So good luck with that, and thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you.
All right, brother. Take care. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share this series, and reach out to us with your comments on the show. Thanks again for joining us.